I'm excited to introduce Sophia Kianni. Sophia is the 19-year-old founder and executive director of Climate Cardinals and represents the United States as the youngest member of the United Nations Secretary General's Youth Advisory Group on Climate Change. So as Sophia is presenting for us, again, please type your questions or comments or support in the chat window, and we will take a few minutes at the end of Sophia's presentations for some Q&A. So thanks for joining us today, Sophia. What would your documentary title be?
Of course, it's a pleasure to be here. I think my documentary title would probably be How a Trip to Iran Inspired Me to Become a Climate Activist.
Nice, nice. Awesome. Well, thanks again for being here. We're excited to hear from you today.
Of course. So I'll take it away. Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be speaking to you all about really my journey as a climate activist and how I feel that you as camp professionals can help to elevate the voices of young people and to really foster their growth to also become climate activists. So I'll share my screen. So here is some more about me. Like Danny mentioned, I am a 19-year-old climate activist. I'm the founder of Climate Cardinals. I'm a writer and public speaker, and I'm also the youngest member on the United Nations Youth Advisory Group on Climate Change. So the way that I became passionate about climate advocacy was I took a 2-month trip to Iran, which is my parents' home country, when I was in middle school. And while I was there, I was struck by how horrible the pollution was. You can see out of these news titles on the left, heavy pollution in Iran hospitalizes 1,500 people in 24 hours. So as a young person, I was really struck by how horrible the environment was. And I also started to do some research into climate change. And I learned that in the Middle East, temperatures were rising more than twice the global average. And as a young person, I really wanted to do something about it. I remember being in 6th grade and my teachers were basically like teaching us about climate change and saying like small things that we could do to make an impact, like recycling. But I really knew that I wanted to go further and to make even more change happen in my community. And so that leads me to how did I get involved, and also how can other young people get involved? So I began by organizing for those 3 groups that you see on the left, Fridays for Future, Extinction Rebellion, and Zero Hour. With those groups, really, we were working on organizing strikes. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Greta Thunberg. And so Fridays for Future was her movement, and I worked with her and many other amazing climate activists to really mobilize thousands of people around the United States to go out into the streets and strike for climate action. And I think what was really powerful about these groups is we had young people from all over the world, all over the country, really meeting online and thinking of creative ways how we could raise awareness for the issue of the climate crisis. And it really illustrated how when young people are given the tools that they need to inspire change, we can do a lot. And I think that really does tie in well to the camp community, because it really is a community. It's a community of young people coming together. And if they're taught how to mobilize and work together efficiently, then they can make change happen in their communities as well. So after working with these various groups, I was kind of inspired to found my own nonprofit, Climate Cardinals, and at Climate Cardinals, we're working to translate climate information into over 100 languages. And it was really inspired by my own experience translating climate information to Farsi for my relatives in Iran, because I realized there was no climate information available in languages other than English. And so that kind of leads me to where I am today, where I'm representing the US on the United Nations Youth Advisory Group on Climate Change. Through all of my experiences, really, I just became aware of how powerful young people are in mobilizing support for the climate crisis, and how age really is just a number when it comes to educating yourself about these important issues. And I think that it's really important for young people to have their growth and development fostered in areas like a camp and in communities like a camp, just because when you're giving young people advice and you're giving them the resources to engage in the types of opportunities that I've engaged in, you're really teaching them important lessons about leadership and about science. So the youth movement's impact was we were able to have over 4 million people go out into the streets and strike, and that was September 20th of 2019. So again, really just emphasizing how when you have young people all come together, we can really make amazing change happen. And so I think that it's definitely critical for camps and for schools to teach young people about how to found a nonprofit and how to get involved in their communities, how to found school clubs. I think that these are lessons that young people, these are lessons that I would have had, like I would have liked as a young person, because I knew I wanted to make a change happen in my community, but I really didn't know how. And so I think that lessons like this are really useful. So you can see really my biggest like lesson that I always give to other young people is know your why. Why are you doing this work? Why is this work important? And like, why should people really listen to what you have to say? And also why is what you're doing different than what has already been done? And so I think these are definitely really important lessons to stress when you are talking to young people, just so they know how to make their voice heard and to really differentiate themselves when it comes to the climate movement. So you can see like the brief things that I really learned while founding a nonprofit, which was to write a mission statement about what I wanted to accomplish, to design a logo to really make us brandable and for people to recognize us, creating a website, finding a fiscal sponsor. So also teaching young people about the legal work behind founding a nonprofit, which is really applicable to a number of different disciplines. I think for me, going through the process of finding a fiscal sponsor and now having like a tax deductible nonprofit was a really useful experience, and just like talking to other people and mobilizing resources. And then of course, mobilizing your team. So much of this is about learning teamwork and learning how you can work with your peers to make a difference, which are really important lessons to instill in young people. And so I think the biggest thing for young people is that we want to move from apathy towards action. And that's like the biggest lesson that I always try to give people, just because a lot of young people, they care about climate change, but the problem is they don't know what they can do about it. They know that they have been confronted by the climate crisis. They hear every single day on the news that this is something that's going to affect our generation disproportionately, that climate change induced disasters are getting worse and worse every single year. And yet we kind of feel helpless because we don't know how can we share our voice, how can we make a difference in our communities. So I think that these are questions that really should be answered by camp professionals, and really to help guide young people along their journey and telling them like, this is how you start a nonprofit, this is how you can create a club in your community, and these are tangible things you can do to make a difference. And so these are just a few opportunities that I think are great for kids to get involved. So obviously, personal plug, joining Climate Cardinals is an awesome way to earn community service hours virtually. We have over 8,000 volunteers now, and so young people can apply to join our teams or to volunteer with us to translate information. Fridays for Future is also a great group. And I think like going along with Fridays for Future, just generally activities like teaching or like working with kids to create art displays where you're taking like recycled poster material and then embellishing it to have messages like Fridays for Future, this is a climate crisis, and then taking pictures of it and then sharing it, or like going on demonstrations in your communities. These are all really fun activities for kids, and it can make them feel like they're using their voice and having their voices heard. So you can see on the left, like that's an example of something that we've been doing during the pandemic, since we can't necessarily go out and demonstrate at our schools anymore, or we can't like hold our signs during lunch periods. Instead, what we've been doing is creating signs and sharing it over social media through Fridays for Future Digital. And then also 0 Hour has the opportunity to create a chapter in your community where you really further the goal of spreading climate literacy and to educate other young people about climate action. And then lastly, so like I was saying, a lot of young people, they care about climate change, but they're really left feeling helpless. So it's super important for adults to tell young people, well, what can we do about it? You can't just teach people that climate change is happening and then just leave them feeling sad and overwhelmed that this is the state that our planet has gotten to. So you can teach them about voting, the importance of voting, and how by supporting elected officials, we can really get climate-friendly candidates into office, whether or not like they're old enough to vote. I wasn't old enough to vote for a number of years. I'm now 19, but even when I wasn't old enough to vote, I really, I think it was important for me to have civic education and to know that I had to engage in conversations with my friends and family about voting and how powerful it can be. And then obviously getting a school board to pass a climate resolution. So really telling young people what they can do within their own schools to make a difference. They can start a climate change club. They can ask their school board to really integrate climate justice into the curriculum, because a lot of young people do want to learn more about climate change at school. And so you really like help to facilitate that and help to like create different presentations for them and to write documents that they can present to their school administrators. And then you can also teach them about like the personal actions that they can do. Like they can support more sustainable businesses, they can thrift, you can have meatless Mondays, and you can teach them about how a large part of fossil fuels are actually contributed to, about 14% are due to the meat and dairy industry. So they can have something like Meatless Mondays and learn more about vegetarianism. And then above all, really just telling young people that it's important to educate yourself, but it's also important to educate others. So they really need to take the lessons that they learn in your camps and share it with their friends and family. So I'm so glad again that you all listened to my presentation. I would now love to take your questions and see if there's anything else you would like to know.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sophia. So I see, Lauren, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Sure. Sophia, thank you so much. And I appreciate what you flagged about students organizing their school boards. And I was curious if you could take that idea and project it a bit more into how you would recommend that our campers become organizers, whether within our own camps in the summer or kind of more globally, 12 months, think of like 12 months over and over, how they can help to advocate for the American Camp Association to encourage camps to become fully sustainable.
I think that's a great idea. I think that within camps, there are a number of activities that you can engage students in. Like you can have them organize like cleanups on the land and then like to recycle those items, and then also teach them how to like turn trash into treasure. Like small things like that, I think are great, like fun ways to engage young people on camps. And then also you can like teach them more about how camps are integrating sustainability into the way that you're operating, and then ask them if they have any ideas for how you can help to further that.
Thank you.
Very cool. I wonder, I'm thinking, Sophia, as far as like encouraging like our campers to be able to stand up and take these actions. Like, it sounds like you've had some mentors and role models. What can we as camp professionals, how can we be that mentor, be that role model to encourage that without being overwhelming, right? We don't want to overwhelm them with that message, but let them come to that as a mentor, as a support.
I think a lot of it is about talking to young people about their personal stories. So really asking them, like, have you seen signs of climate change within your own community? Have you seen signs of environmental like damage in your own community? And then when you can help them to identify these issues within their community, then you can kind of be a support system for them, basically saying, okay, like now that you've seen this is a problem you really care about because of your own personal story. How can I provide the resources and the guidance to really help you to make that change happen? How can you address these problems in your community?
Awesome, great. I see Rebecca and Kina both had a similar question. Rebecca, do you want to come on and ask your question?
Yes, can you see me?
Yes, thanks, Rebecca.
Hello from New Hampshire. So we're actually on a farm here in New Hampshire, and we run a day camp. And I love that idea of the Meatless Mondays that you shared. Do you have anything else that you have, like maybe in previous years, spoke to camps about that they've had success something that can become like a routine or like a staple of our camp moving forward would be great.
I mean, I think that there are a number of activities, like I was mentioning previously. I think like artistic activities that integrate like sustainability, such as like going like into something that you think is like trash, like throwing away instead of like a carton, seeing how you can turn that carton into like an art piece, like that's something fun and cool that you can do. And then you can also work with campers to like make those protest signs that I was talking about. So I think that these are all like fun activities that really emphasize the importance of sustainability while also really fostering the creative side of campers.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for everything that you're doing. You're a phenomenal young woman. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your question, Rebecca. And yeah, absolutely. Sophia, thank you so much for joining us. Any, as we kind of wrap and move on to the next thing, any last minute words of wisdom or advice that you would give to us as we move forward in our planning season for the summer to engage and impact the millions of campers and the millions of acres that we're working with as stewards?
Definitely just continuing to echo what I was saying in my presentation about how I think it's important to not leave young people feeling helpless. So don't only teach them about climate change, but teach them about these tangible things that they can do to make a difference and also foster their growth as people, and so that they can really make change happen in their communities.
Excellent. That's awesome, Sophia. Well, thanks. Can everyone get a round of applause for Sophia for joining us?